Nobody goes through life without conflict. Could be big, could be small, but everyone has felt that horrible gut feeling when something doesn't work out or goes wrong. In my life, I've had a fair share of conflict, from school, friends, anxiety, depression, family, and health. I have experienced struggles in all aspects of my life. I have slowly made progress, but none of which could have been done without the help of Pam, the church, and the youth group. The support provided is unable to be articulated. I always have a place where I will be heard. I began my journey in 8th grade, middle school, youth group. I vividly remember telling Pam that I needed this place. It just felt right. I was not only lost, but I was misunderstood. I was not always the nicest person throughout middle school, and by 8th grade, I realized that I needed to change. I lost all of my friends in order to start fresh and new. Without these girls in my life, my social life began to crumble fast. As a result, I lost my sense of self, closed myself off, and created a hard outer shell to protect my vulnerability. Now, I wasn't stupid. I knew this lifestyle was not sustainable. It was in this realization that I decided to become more engaged with the youth program at the church. Pam gave me encouragement to speak up and be comfortable. This led to gaining more self-confidence in myself. Though I had an awful year, I began the process of rebuilding. Confirmation started the following fall, and I was excited for a new challenge. It all sounded great, but first I had to overcome some health problems. In mid-August, I got meningitis, and although I had recovered enough to survive, I still had harsh, cutting headaches, and a general slowness took over my brain. I had to work extra hard on everything that I did so that I could maintain the level of expertise that was always expected from me. In the Gospel of Thomas, it is stated that if you do not know yourself, then you are the poverty. When I read this, I thought of poverty as the poverty we see on TV, hungry, poor, devastated. However, as I continued to read over this passage, I realized that Thomas meant poverty in your own mind, lacking compassion, understanding, self-respect, confidence. I realized that missing even one of these factors results in an impoverished mind, a sense of emptiness resulting in sadness and depression. You need to know yourself to be heard and know that you are loved. The biggest turning point in my freshman year was the service project. I realized that all these people went to New Mexico with the goal of bettering the community. We did see the stereotypical poverty as we drove by certain towns, but looking back, I see that there was also poverty within our group. There was sadness in some, unconfident people, and even loneliness amidst a group of 50+ people. However, as the week went on, I saw that people started to become more confident within themselves, especially when on the second full night of reflections, a member of the group felt so comfortable that he told us a secret that he had never been able to admit to himself. This moment was powerful, to say the least. In the following days, I learned that my place in this group was never going to leave. I was always welcome no matter who I was. I started to break down the walls of my shell. I started to gain confidence, and I started to become who I really wanted to be. As I began to understand who I was, I learned that I was always going to be loved. In the moment, I cannot say I immediately associated this with being a child of God, but in retrospect, that's what really happened. The God we believe in is what brings us together as a congregation. The community is the heart of this place. We all care for each other, we all love each other, and that is why we keep coming back. God created the community for us to love. Following the freshman year service project, I continued my growth in the community. Sophomore year started, and I was fully confident in myself and my place. However, certain conflicts did occur. There were tumultuous nights at my house. Between my mom going in and out of the hospital and my brother's hardships in school, there was never a calm and stable environment in my home. This instability triggered the same anxiety and depression that I had in 8th grade. I all of a sudden lost faith in my community. I felt as if I was let down. I worked so hard to break down my walls, and now they were being built right back up. The service trip that year was to the Dominican Republic, which should have been super exciting. However, in the nights leading up to it, all I did was cry and cry about how scared and nervous I was. I'd like to forget that trip ever happened. For some reason, it was yet another trigger for my anxiety. From the weather, sickness, protests in the streets of the town around us, there's that same unstable feeling. When I got home, I was relieved that trip was over, but it put me right back into my unstable home. This was the ultimate breakdown for me. I lost it. I spent weeks out of school rebuilding and figuring out how to be happy again. And this time, I met with Pam on multiple occasions. She kept telling me that youth group would help. I was hesitant, but I knew she was right. As I started to get back into my groove of Sunday youth group, I began to see that my place in the church was still there, unwavering. It was the hope and the love that was given to me by my peers in this church that helped me get over the hump of sadness. Next thing I knew, it was junior year, and everyone was freaking out about their workload and the college process starting. I was terrified I would lose it again, but somehow I managed to avoid the junior year stress, probably due to my incredibly empty schedule. I knew my path that I wanted to take after high school: go to college in California, major in communications, go to law school, become an entertainment attorney, and work with a major entertainment firm in LA. This clear path never changed and provided a very stable road in the college process. Junior year went smoother than I ever imagined. Conflict, yes, but conflicts that I could handle because I had been through them all. Church was still a part of my life, but I felt like it was no longer the only thing keeping me happy. I loved seeing everyone, but somehow the connection was not as strong as it was in the past. Yes, I had a great service project and was completely engaged while I was there, but afterwards I didn't have that same OMG moment as I did my freshman year. Now we get to senior year, the final chapter. You'd think that I'd have my whole social life figured out after 3 years, but in reality I felt lost again. Summer was a terrible time in my social life. Fights and bitter teenage girl drama occurred, and I felt alone all the time. I still had some friends, but no one that I felt entirely comfortable with. I felt that impoverished feeling again, lost and alone with no one who I could really relate to. Fortunately, I had Pam. Through many talks and texts, she convinced me that the youth group would accept me no matter how I was feeling. I knew this, but didn't really want to go. Luckily, I forced myself to and started the rebuilding process yet again. The service trip this year, the one we just recently got back from, made me realize why I am here. When I am out in the community, I see the happiness. I see how much my help is appreciated. As a senior, I realize that my time at this church is coming to a close. I will no longer have such a sense of community as I do in this place. This place mends friendships, creates new relationships, develops character, and so much more. All of these characteristics are representative of what we believe Jesus wanted. We are a community-based church, a place where we can find the faith, the healing, and the love of God within each other. In January of this year, I made a decision that will be permanent the rest of my life. I got a tiny tattoo of the cross on one of my fingers to remind myself of how I became the person I am today. This action has received both praise and hesitation from the people around me, my parents, but never once have I regretted it, which is the most common question I get. The cross has a twofold meaning in my life, something I initially did not think of. The first time I got sad and anxious after getting that tattoo, I looked down and stared. This tiny piece of ink reminded me that even in my saddest moments, I have this church, this group of wonderful people. This small little reminder gave me hope. Secondly, when I'm happy and carefree, I look down and see this tiny reminder, telling me that I should always be grateful for what I have. This little piece of me is the greatest reminder of all time. God, Jesus, Pam, this congregation. Everyone has allowed me a place to rebuild and to grow. And when I go 3,000 miles across the country next year for college, I will always know, every time I look down, that you are all with me.